mapping out the building, and it's supposed to replace our jobs.
Yeah.
Eventually. Be able to give tours and stuff.
You're going to be outsourced.
Exactly.
To a
So you're
computer.
trying to reprogram it to
I know,
fail?
literally, I come in
should just
here for
kick
my
it.
tour. And just kick it. As I walk by. But, yeah.
Take over the tours. There's the map.
So we'll be following
Guide as well. And the same, if you'll saw the mural in there, the same artist actually did this, and his name is Silhouette. And what's cool is they wanted to do like a computer science theme. So instead of just like him coming out here and building it, or like him doing a sketch and then building it, he actually gave an algorithm to people, and then they took that algorithm, like a computer science program, and then they built it. And that's like what came out of it. And what's also cool is that his work can only be in one place at one time. So when we bought this, how much did we buy it for?
$750,000.
Yeah, so almost $1 million.
Bargain.
They tore it down in New York, and then they built it here.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, we students call it Gates Henge, but it doesn't have an actual name.
Is it permanently here though?
Yes, it's been here since the building. It's like a part of the building.
Great.
Crane machine, right? This is the crane.
It kind of looks like Cray, yeah.
So go in the middle and ask for Nirvana.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminded
Yeah.
me of the Stonehenge.
And actually, like in San Jose, they have this sort of.
Basically, this is kind of what gives you a sense of scale on this entire system, how big you actually have. And so an HD TV is about 2.1 megapixels of resolution, and each of these monitors is 4.1 megapixels, and we have 80 of these monitors tiled together, so that's 328 million pixels in total that we can actually display on this. And so, for example, Bronco, which is our 4K projector, 8.9 megapixels, that's the one that sits up there. And we actually have presentations and events that actually we showcase there. And the equivalent of that resolution is only taking up this much percentage of this entire display. So it gives you a sense of scale of how much pixels we can actually display on this. And so, yeah, and another interesting thing is that there's actually the Nokia Lumia camera phone that came out several years ago, I think around 2011 timeframe. That could take photos of up to 38 megapixels of resolution. But the disadvantage of that is that once you take those photos, you're only viewing it on a small display anyways. And so the ideal thing is that you want to be able to view that at its native resolution. And so that's why being able to view it like this on a set of 9 screens, for example, is actually the way that it's meant to be viewed. And so that's what's one of the biggest advantages of a system like this. And so this is kind of a main gallery that we like to showcase. And so there's a variety of work across different application domains that we actually show on this entire thing. And so just one quick example, which is interesting, this is just a photograph of the Austin skyline at nighttime, and we can actually zoom in on this really high-scale image, and actually, without losing too much clarity, and then you can see as you can kind of pan around, you can continue to zoom in, and it'll re-render and actually conclude this to actually show you the different parts of the visualization.
So how do you get the clarity? Is it just it has more data stored to get that detail and just magnify that, or it's your computer voice clarifying the picture?
Yeah, so I mean, what it's doing basically, this is just a really large-scale image by itself, and so this was taken as a panoramic image with a regular DSLR camera and stitched together. And so the reason that it's so high scale is because there's so many stitched together pictures that actually make this.
So this is not live.
It's not live. No.
This is from a DSLR.
Yeah, and he just took a panorama and stitched it together. And if you see, it's actually a pretty good stitch.
It is good.
One interesting thing that you might see if you look closely, that there's this crane here that's actually not connected to anything. So that's like one flaws that I found.
Yeah. There's an online thing of Dubai that's like this, that you can zoom in all the way into a individual car.
Oh,
and
really?
they did like 1,000 pictures
Like
stitched.
Spy in the Sky.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. You can actually see a lot of the details. And yeah, the reason that it's having to recompute is that the data is not just moving between the screens, it's moving between the computers, as I mentioned, because each computer is controlling a set of 4 screens. And so once it moves across that boundary, it has
That's
to
cool. We could have done that with TRAC.
So who are your clients for these visualization services? People on campus only, or is it worldwide then?
So yeah, it's a lot of stuff is for campus people, and people are researchers at UT, but we also have researchers from different institutions as well. And then we actually have a program, I think it's called STAR, Science and Technology Affiliates for Research, and that involves collaborations with corporations like Intel and things like that, and other companies that actually want to advance the research in this space, basically, in HPC as well as visualization.
Can you connect to external companies' computers with the graphics machinery, or is it all kind of tied into the supercomputer stuff?
No, yeah, it's all tied in here. So what
Okay.
a lot of times what they do for that is they actually come down and we actually work closely with them to get their data working on here, or
load it in.
their ray tracers and software running on our system.
Okay.
So yeah, the original size of this image was actually around a gigapixel in resolution. And so this is actually a visualization of the simulation of dark matter in the universe. And so this was actually a product of the UT Astronomy Department's research, and they were actually trying to simulate, the origins of the universe.
McDonald observatory.
I mean, yeah, it's not a direct like observation. It's mostly like a simulation that they were doing. Yeah. And so this is kind of like what they believe to be the origins of the universe as it was forming and stuff.
Well, how can we see it if it's dark? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
Yeah, they faked it, right?
So the way that I understand this image is that the membranes that you see, the very light parts, that's where the concentration of dark matter is actually in the universe. And so you can actually see that
And
certain
apparently
pockets.
like a spoon of that, the weight of the spoon of this dark
Yeah.
matter is like
It's like a histogram of dark matter, 2D histogram.
no, a spoon of that is weighs more than the whatever,
Yeah.
more than the Earth or something.
Oh, you're talking about a black hole.
Was it black hole?
Yeah, a spoon of dark matter is like pretty light, I think. I don't know. Could be.
I don't guys know.
Nobody knows for sure.
So yeah, so there's different projects on here. Some of these are like hurricane visualizations, storm visualizations, which is actually a specialty of Greg Foss, who you guys met previously. And so yeah, there's various different applications that we actually do. Most of them are from science and technology, STEM kind of related fields, but they don't necessarily have to be STEM fields, which is one interesting aspect is that this image right here, this is from the Google Art Project. I'm sure you guys have seen this image before. This is a Starry Night painting by Van Gogh.
Oh, yeah.
And so the purpose of the Google Art Project is to actually preserve some of these famous paintings in a digital format so that you can actually just preserve them digitally and kind of maintain them in just a record of the actual painting. I don't know the exact resolution. The way that they actually took this was a similar thing to the panorama that I showed you, and so they actually had a large thing and they stitched it together, kind of like a macroscopic. Yeah, exactly. You can see the canvas behind the paint, as well as the brush strokes.
Wow.
You can also see the cracks in the paint as well. And one interesting thing is that you can actually use the cracks in the paint as like kind of a blueprint for the original image. So you can actually say, whether or not something's a forgery or not, just based on the cracks.
Oh, very interesting. Right.
So this is of the original, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously you'd never be able to get this close to the image in actuality.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a lot of security.
Fascinating.
It's interesting you integrated a.
Yeah, noticed that. That was fancy.
Yeah, so we have different ways to kind of interface with this. One of them is an Xbox controller, and so that makes it really nice to actually just navigate through the images of the gallery and stuff like that. We also have that Samsung Touch table behind you guys over there in the back. That's not active right now, but we actually used to have that here, and you can actually use touch interaction.
I see.
But everybody likes the game thing better, probably.
Yeah. So we actually, when this system was actually coming up and being developed, we actually experimented with different types of interaction, depending on to see kind of what users actually enjoyed. And one of them was actually the Microsoft Kinect, where you can actually use gestures.
Right.
But we realized that a lot of researchers were getting very tired of doing this all the time,
Right.
and so that wasn't the best kind of way to
I see.
use with this. And so that's
It's
another.
sexy, but
Yeah.
How long has this system been out?
This system, I believe it was built 2008 or maybe, no, I think it was 2008 was when the lab was built. I think 2012 or somewhere, well, maybe a little bit before.
So what's the useful lifetime for this?
Like these are 4K monitors that can't be more than 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, and so.
Well, have they been replaced?
These are LCD panels, and so if you actually notice, some of the color calibration is a little bit off between the panels. And actually, if you guys are visiting the JJ Pickle campus, you guys should also stop by our other visit lab. which is there. That's our updated visualization lab, which is called our Human Data Interaction Lab. And so that's where we actually do experimental visualization and interface technology. So we have a secondary system to this, like a sequel kind of thing.
I see.
And so that's made out of 4K OLED panels.
Oh, is that right?
OLED, wow.
Yeah, and they have much thinner bezels. As you notice
Right,
over here,
right.
the bezel width is actually some of the limiting factor for
Yes.
visualization.
Yeah. They have actual bezel-less ones I've seen in stores now.
Yeah.
There's one of our
Totally.
friends, he works at a company called Prism.
They
PRYS.
remove the bezels.
They remove all the bezels.
Oh, wow.
So they got a 90 by 100 foot.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
We sometimes go see games on
They
them.
can play
That would be something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty nice.
football on that.
Actually, they're getting onto the hardware.
We had an initiative at TAC to actually provide like respondents and stuff like that, and collect some of the data to actually help people and stuff with the actual emergency situation and stuff.
This is the only thing
So you
that
can-
is lacking from TRAC for the people watching number simulation. You know, you could see how
So how many professors
That's missing. They don't have that.
In TAC itself?
No, in graphical visualization.
Oh yeah, so that's mostly in the computer science department, so I'm not too familiar with
Oh,
that.
you're not with
Oh, you're on TAC.
I'm in electrical computer science. I guess same as you guys.
We had mixed. We
So
because
PAC
our
itself
co-advisors were both.
We're both?
Yeah, Jim Brown was from Kamsa and Paki was from BC.
Okay.
So we had. It's also reads your mind as you're seeing.
Yeah. We can see it all, yeah.
There is Facebook technology in there.
Oh wow. So if you want to sit down,
Oh, is that what you're seeing? She's seeing the,
Where is it?
There was a
and I'll
guy
give you the controller in your
at
hand.
UT,
Oh my goodness.
Which I don't think.
Which I don't know how to
the end of my time there,
So
was
there's
a
a,
PhD
with your
student
thumb, you can see there's a
that was
joystick.
working with the, remember the advanced graphics lab? That was on the
Yeah,
other
and
side
so
of
you
the
can use
floor?
that to walk around.
Yeah.
Marge Knox.
Marge Knox, or, you know, somebody.
Oh, look at that.
a grad student. And he was
museum is
building
this?
Yeah, so this
a
is actually a
simulator for
museum.
NASA.
This is a project in collaboration with
came
the
up
UT
with-
English department.
using their
And so what they were
stuff.
actually doing was
They
had a PDP
1134 in
there.
there. Many
you can rotate around, Lisa.
Yeah, so she visited this museum
rotate your
back
chair.
in her day. And I
Thanks.
actually kept a really detailed journal entry of what she saw and experienced and everything. But the thing is, this museum has actually burned down since then. So the only place it exists now is in
But
virtual
where was it?
It was in London.
In London.
Burnt down. You're seeing a burnt down building.
Yeah.
How about
I'm
that?
gonna do this now. So Lisa, have you smoked the right
This
stuff
guy
so you
had
can?
I'm looking
when
up.
NASA was doing their flying backpack.
It's legal in
Can
California.
she turn 360 around?
Colorado too.
Yeah, she can turn around.
Spin your chair.
She can look up to the
Yeah, I
sky.
wanna go there.
Yeah.
Joystick up
Yeah,
and
so let me,
interfaced it to Marge Knox's machine.
Hey, can you hold
Glasses off.
Flying around.
Can you hold it for a second?
You can take your glasses.
And they couldn't fly it.
That's right. Microsoft.
This is the Oculus Rift, which
did.
is an outlet Facebook.
Oh, it is? Okay. I'm
Facebook.
What was the guy's name?
You were one of the first people you're the first person I know that tried an Oculus Rift.
So is this the
So read your mind. It's on Facebook, right? That's all about you now.
Yeah, so if you physically move your head around,
Not much interesting stuff to know though.
I see.
you can don't go too far, but that's kind of like the space that you can physically go around in, which is designated by the grid, and you can walk around using a joystick.
Gave it back to him.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you see how it changes slightly
And we
based
went
on.
down to see it.
So what is the joystick controlling?
The joystick is controlling his movement, so if he goes left and right or forward and back.
That's walking around,
So if it
right?
looks up
And
to
then
the
you can
sky
move your
or-
head.
But why doesn't it do it so like it's a double control? You can do it with your head and you can do it with the joystick.
Yeah, so since there's two towers here, you can actually have a slight degree of movement, but obviously since it's tethered in, you can't go everywhere.
He was
I can move around this supposedly, right?
Yeah, not too far.
There is a wire connected to your thing.
Yeah, don't go too far.
So they
Use
don't
the
have a,
joystick.
they haven't figured out enough wireless bandwidth, I guess, for this thing.
Yeah, so this is because it's running on
He's on the move.
it needs a lot of the.
And I have to be careful not to just move my head.
Oh, is the GPU actually built right in there, or
No, no, it's in this machine.
So this is just a renderer. I mean, it's just a screen. So why couldn't they do wireless?
sitting at the console.
Oh, very cool.
10G wireless?
Jimi Hendrix could use it.
Why don't you want to try this?
I did.
Oh, you already tried it?
Because it went
I can go to robotics.
robotics conference.
See that?
Thank you,
I
Saran.
mean, you guys do it.
We really appreciate it.
I've seen it.
Anybody else want to try it?
I've seen it too. We went to a robotic conference.
For the thing, they were all named Kirk,
I see. I see. I see. Okay.
And you use the joystick with your thumb.
And I actually can shoot this.
Sometimes
Yes.
There's a robotics.
and so I was playing the game.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now.
Does it actually sense if you get your head moves up and down that your point of view is different?
No, actually, it's actually locked. For the reason for that is that it's set at Jane Austen's height, and so it's exactly what she experienced when she was looking around.
Either stay stationary and use the joystick to move things around,
Jane Austen.
or you can actually physically
Yes.
move and then.
Yeah, I mean, the sensor technology is pretty
We could have done
You can
this
swivel your chair all the way around, right?
heavy.
Yeah, but if you keep going around, it'll
half an hour.
Yeah, but just go around once and come back.
Yeah,
If you want
and a margarita on the other
And
hand.
Margaret on the other hand, there you go.
That's cool.
Yeah, if we wanted to.
But we like to
We wanted to do other things like Fibonacci numbers.
Communications are advanced so much faster.
Yeah.
That's good. Than the whole.
Like all the little arms.
the old,
Of robotic backup
We are
stuff?
in the process of switching that out in the next like 2 years to make it digital. Because finally the digital is low enough in cost that it's enough to
It's
equal
must take
out the
one,
tape.
yeah.
But we've had tape forever.
So you got IBM also servers,
We
IBM.
do not have, we have one small IBM system that belongs to a researcher on campus.
So, do you still have a distributed computing group, or is that gone now?
Everything is distributed computing now, so
It doesn't matter.
it's
You
not a
have
separate group.
Good
It's
answer.
not a separate group.
Yeah, we used to work mostly on TerraGrid and stuff.
Right, exactly,
But
yeah.
now everyone works on it.
But everyone looks at that.
So
It's
that
across
group,
the board.
that group called Exceed, that's just universities or is?
Exceed is a national cyber infrastructure that's funded by NSF, and so it is mostly made up of universities. They have some industry partners who help offer training, but mostly it is an academic-based cyber infrastructure to share networks and people and training and information, and we have conferences every year, and
When you say we're the biggest,
TAC is the
computing power?
largest resource provider of that group. Nobody else has a
So it's made up of
as
these
big
different
as
nodes,
this.
right? And
Right.
each node has got computing and what TRAC provides.
Yeah.
Are there like-
San Diego
Somewhere
has a
in
smaller
California.
machine, Pittsburgh has a small machine, but Stampede 2 is by far, is number 12 in the world and is by far the biggest system.
So even the big, even MITs and Cornells and all that?
OSC got very small,
Oh, really?
yes.
Oh.
They, almost everybody else, the problem is, the way the funding situation is, if you don't win those big grants,
Well, then
and you
you're gone.
can't,
Yeah.
or you don't have the matching funds. Thank God UT is nice enough to pay our power bill.
Oh.
We are very grateful for that. Very, the electric bill, yeah.
Then when you talk about nodes, are they all interconnected by
You'll
some kind of
see.
high-speed, giant fiber, laser?
No, this is good. Please ask questions. That's what
Okay.
we're for.
And also, are you mining Bitcoin?
No,
No Bitcoin mining?
there's none of that here.
Okay.
That is actually against the rules, particularly because it's an NSF-funded system.
I would think so,
They actually
yeah.
specifically mentioned that?
They mentioned cryptocurrency now. in their-
Yeah,
in their-
because that's a big use for computing, right?
Right.
Connect those.
Like mining.
Great, we'll have lots of good.
I mean, one
Massive rectangle.
Yeah.
Many people working on it. Yeah.
Virtual
Okay.
Yeah, that was also amazing.
What year is this from? What year?
This was 2008.
Wow, it's not that long ago.
Ranger was 579 teraflops. It was the largest. It was our path to petascale system. It was the largest machine in the NSF community at the time, and we have continued to build big machines for them and with them. So, yes, this was from a previous version of Lone Star. This is the old machine room and the old auditorium in the other building. And so Michael Dell came for the dedication, and Tinsley Oden, who is just now retiring this year, finally. Amazingly, he's been there forever. And so we had lots and lots of racks. You recognize some of these people?
I probably know a lot of them.
Actually,
Yeah.
those racks look like the computer we built.
Japanese for the light emanating from a star, so like Lone Star.
Oh, okay.
There's the connection.
Otherwise, every single machine
Well, we had this
has to have a Texas theme.
It's a Texas
A
name.
Texas name?
And if you can tell when we go through, the ones that aren't quite Texas names are the ones that we didn't get to pick.
And not only that, even your desktop machine and stuff.
It's the Texas.
No.
Yeah, pick a like.
That machine is called your name, so.
Really? Okay, even there we used to have.
But we had a long discussion with them about what to call this machine, and they thought we should call it something like Wagyu, like cattle names, beef I'm not naming my computer after a steak. Although that would be a very Texas thing to do, Hikari works better.
Yeah.
So they were looking for a place to demo this infrastructure. They have this solar-powered high voltage DC infrastructure in other countries around the world, and they didn't have it in the U.S. yet. And so they were doing a tour of different universities and talking to people, and we said, well,
Japan was?
Yes, the Japanese government, the NATO, which is the basically their Department of Energy research arm.
Have you asked if you could do pictures?
Yes, welcome to take pictures, absolutely. And so they came here and we said, we have this space, you could be in the window, but they actually just wanted to put it in infrastructure and something to monitor the power. And we said, well, can we put a computer on the end of it? Wouldn't that be better? And they said, well, yes. And so they paid for the machine, so that was nice. And it's an HP because when we were looking for a machine to put in that could take the high voltage DC power, HP was the only one that had one ready at that moment.
Wow. How come HP doesn't have a logo on there?
That's what that little green box is.
Oh.
They wanted to put them across the middle of it, and we said no.
Okay.
I'm not putting your little emerald thing across.
But I love the Mount Fuji and the cowboy.
I tell you, my graphic designer is.
Yeah.
So we put that logo as well on all the power conditioning units, and so you can tell they're all the same parts. We monitor. One of the conditions of the test is monitoring how much power is being generated from the sun, how much is being used by the machine. It is, because it's this small, very powerful machine, it is actually about 600 teraflops. It gets used primarily for bio and life sciences projects. They do a lot of container work on there. And we can do private patient data kind of work that we're allowed to run on that machine. So the sun is out, you can tell when the sun comes up, boink. And then we're using about 50K of compute power on the machine when it's running something right. And all of the flora and fauna of the state of Alaska, and dragonflies, and global satellite data, and archaeological digs, and you name it, it's on there. And for internal or UT system users, it's free, 5 terabytes free per year, and then $200 per terabyte per year after that, which is not a lot, considering that it is replicated. So there's a system that's exactly like this up at UT Arlington, and it's backed up every night. And we then supply, if they need it, we also have a staff of people who are good at computing interfaces. So they will help them make a web front end and build the database. We have an API that we developed here, and it makes it easy for these people to be able to share their research, bring up a web page, pull up. There's one called fishesoftexas.org. And it's all of the various kinds of fish. You put in the taxonomy of what you're looking for, and it will tell you with latitude and longitude where you can find those fish in the state of Texas. And the database is sitting on here because there's nowhere else that would have it. So we have it. We're talking to the Blanton about digitizing all their collections. It's all spinning disks. Yeah. So yeah, the Blanton, the Smithsonian is starting to think about. A couple of years ago, started thinking about digitizing their collections, which is going to take decades. And petabytes, but it's got to be done. And so we also have on staff a librarian who got her degree at the School of Information, who is out there teaching people how to do metadata. Because you've got to be able to go into your stores from 20 years ago and still be able to find things. And if people haven't cataloged them properly, how are you ever going to find something again?
They got to know the Dewey Decimal System.
So we're teaching people again how to save things. And NSF has a requirement for any of their researchers that get funding. You must also keep your data for a certain number of years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so people can go back and replicate. It's actually one of the things that they've just started doing that I love for the student cluster competition at our big supercomputing conference every year in November. The students have to build their own cluster and run benchmarks. And they have to run, of course, the massive benchmark that we all run to say where you are on the top 500 list, but they also have to run a couple of other applications, 2 of which they find out in advance and 1 is a secret, and until the day of. And then they run a replicability test. So they give them the best paper from the previous year and say, here, rerun this person's research and see if your answers come out to what their answers are. So it's good for the researcher because they know they have to have something that can be replicated, and it's good for kids to try something different.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Water code?
Right, Cray is also water cooled in the same way with the fans.
Looks very
going
different from our
across.
times. That
Yes.
used to be a nice sitting chair.
What used to be a circle, yes.
Yeah.
So we don't do that anymore.
Is Cray, the company, still around?
It is still around.
Cray
It
Research.
It has been bought and sold and absorbed, but because the name is Cray, they kept the name. So I think SGI bought them, or they bought it. I think
Silicon
SGI bought
Graphics.
them, and it became Cray, and so
So you
they're
can
still
you
around.
have support for these systems?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Officially.
I was
we
still-
don't have any. Yeah, and their Intel, but their Intel has well processors. It's
Yeah.
not the Cray Vector machine that it used to be.
Oh, right.
Everything is
Intel.
everything is component computing. It's not one big vectorized machine anymore. This one, you'll love this. This one is the only place on campus where you will see the UT, Texas Tech, and Texas A&M logos all next to each other.
Oh, wow.
And everyone
Good
plays
picture
nice
of
in the
that.
sandbox. Nobody is beating each other up.
They're all frozen.
They're
I have
all
one kid in each university.
really well. They're all collaborating.
I gotta take a
because
picture of
this
them on
is-
how to get along.
Yes, you get along by sharing your supercomputing.
Yeah.
So what this is we all pooled our funds to buy a bigger machine. So A&M and Tech both have HPC centers, but they run smaller machines. And this way, this is the second time we've done this actually. We had a small bit of money left over from something that came from NSF. And we went to them and said, okay, well, if you put in some money and we put in some money and we got some other UT institutions, ISAs and CSR to put in some funds, then we can all buy a bigger machine. And then however much money you put in, you get an allocation
Of computing
that
power.
percentage of the machine, proportional allocation.
Cool.
And then they get to decide which of their researchers run. We don't have to decide that. So this machine, but then we said to Cray, well, we'll take this machine, but we're going to actually mess with it because we don't necessarily want it to only run the way Cray runs. Because Cray has their own BIOS, and when you run on this machine, you run the way a Cray runs. And everything else we do runs on a modular system called LMOD, and the guy who developed it works here, where you load your software and your compiler and your libraries, and the modules all know what goes with what. And so you just load a module, and it loads up all the right versions of each thing for when you want to run your software. And so we wanted this machine to do that. And at first Cray said, well, no, you can't play with our machine. You have to use it the way it is. And we said, well, then you won't be in our window. And they said, oh. And we said, no, if you're putting it in here, we're going to mess with it. And they did. They said, fine, okay. So we did. It took a couple months to basically jailbreak it and make it do what we wanted. And then they invited us to come to the Cray user group meeting and tell them what we did. And I would not be surprised if a lot of other organizations have asked them to put LMOD
LMOD, all
on their
right.
Crays because it just makes it so much easier.
Awesome.
So much easier.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
I'm curious, and I know different configurations, there are different prices, but
Yep.
what kind of a price are we talking about for the Cray that you installed?
So I'm trying to think of how much money we spent. I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million, but that can't be right.
It's not as costly as the used.
No, but also you get
But you get a lot more.
Yeah.
And we get a discount. We got a very, very good discount on this machine.
Yeah.
Cray wants the machine here, right?
No tax.
Yes, Cray gives us a very good deal.
In fact, a lot of the
Yeah.
proposals you write, Cray, I mean, the manufacturer comes in with.
And that is why we don't have an IBM. Who asked me? That's why we don't have an IBM.
But they don't want to do that?
don't.
IBM's idea of, and I'm not talking out of school, but I've heard someone from IBM say this, their idea of collaborating with academia is not providing a discount like that.
Oh.
And so they want to charge us full price. We can't afford to pay, especially when everybody else is going to give us a very nice deal. So, sorry.
Of course not. Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember. I think Hikari, I cannot remember. I want to say $13 million, but that sounds like a lot.
How many nodes does this have? How many?
So this is 500 nodes, and it is a little over a petaflop. There has well processors, and so this made it up into the top 200 in the world 6 months ago. So we're going to run.
Architecturally, is what? No, it's not 14.0, is it, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
It is?
They all are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mostly high performance
Everything is.
So it's not a SIMD architecture, right? No. But it's just distributed. Like distributed.
The processors, are they?
So the processors are, it's Haswell is the Intel processor level that this is, and they're connected through the Aries interconnect, which is a Cray.
Special interconnect.
Special,
Cray,
that's the Cray interconnect, that's what they do. We have, Hikari uses Mellanox, InfiniBand, and Stampede 2 is using the Dell
logically, it's like 512 computers working independently or as a group.
Yeah.
Do they all have their own memory, or how is it, or is it very
They
structured?
have their own, each one has its own small amount of memory, and then they're all connected to Stockyard, which is our global cloud system.
Oh, okay.
They share a network files.
Yeah.
They have this, they don't have storage out here.
But for
But they'll have giant amount of
but for active memory,
Yeah.
just a small amount.
Yeah, the small
Relatively
amount of
small.
local active memory, and
Okay.
then the Lustre file, this is a Lustre file system, this is 20 petabytes of workable storage, and it is connected through multiple fiber and 10 gig connections to all the other machines in the world.
Wow.
So that every user has space to save their data, because we really don't want people to have to download their data, and if they want to do other things with it, like visualization or data analysis, we have other machines for that, so you might as well just leave your data here. All of the machines are connected to the Stockyard, all but one. And so you can then get your data and do your data analysis or do your viz and not have to download it.
It's probably the TRAC CPUs with the floating point unit from Intel, it's like a lot of memory. Each by itself makes a system. So you can shove a program there and you compute, or you can cluster, as you were saying, cluster a few to run your program. But all your storage will be there.
So how is it all connected by like a kind of fiber
Yes.
switch, fiber switches?
It's probably multi-gigabyte.
Well, so there's a multi-gigabyte switch, and then
Yeah.
from the Lustre file system, there's also multi-10 gig Ethernet connections. There's fast and slow connections to each of the systems, so that if you're downloading or uploading, you can leave your data here.
So from our days, that time we were worried about the cost of the switch and all that, and
Yeah.
therefore we looked at the non-blocking thing.
Right.
Now, because of packet switching, etc., all this is Ethernet. And
collision.
then
Well, now it's fiber. It's InfiniBand.
InfiniBand. So
Yeah.
in data centers, it's
A little bit
InfiniBand,
faster.
Yeah. So
Similar
that
to Ethernet.
then when it goes up and it's faster along the way.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's much
And
better.
a lot of these details are on the website, right?
Yes, all of these details, every single one of our systems has a user guide on the webpage.
Wow.
And you can look at what the processes are, what the network is, how to use it, what the,
Okay.
what the.
Is this solid state memory? Solid state?
Another way of doing switching Ethernet switching, but at a higher performance there. So you don't have to worry about blocking because it's packet switching.
It's over-engineered.
Right, that's basically it. That's part of why we give tours to little kids, and we give tours to older kids, and we give tours to grown-ups, and I get people who ask really critical questions.
Yeah,
And then I get people
we're all
who
geeks.
wouldn't
We're
know
all
what
in
to
this.
ask if you give them a book about it.
Yeah, we got geeks. You're in geek territory.
But that's part of, why I like doing this, is I can also tell you that, for Stampede 2, which is now the number 12 system in the world, the first group of users in our early